This is huge, okay? Joe Biden knew that. Is this the end of Joe Biden's career?
Mr. Reagan.
So earlier this week, politicians from the Ukrainian government released audio tapes between Joe Biden and former Ukraine President Petro Poroshenko. Now, the release of these tapes has been reported by a number of news media outlets, but nobody seems to comprehend the importance of these tapes. It's not the smoking gun, if you will, but there is something significant on these tapes, something new, something, a piece to the puzzle that we didn't have before, something that we could speculate on, but we didn't have evidence to support. Now we have that evidence, and this is pretty darn huge, and I don't know how everybody is missing this, but I'm going to explain that here. Now, we all know the story about Joe Biden, how he was in Ukraine, and he tells the story himself about he was in Ukraine, and he told them that if you don't fire this prosecutor general that I believe is corrupt, I'm not going to give you government aid money, right? He was holding up aid money in order for them to do something that he wanted specifically, and he claims, obviously, that this is because Viktor Shokin was corrupt. Let's go ahead and watch that again.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Now, the argument, since this tape came out, the argument from Trump was that this was a sign that Joe Biden was acting corruptly. And the suspicion from reporting from the New York Times and from several other places, the suspicion was that because Hunter Biden was working for Burisma, a gas company that was getting a lot of the aid money from the United States at the time, that Joe Biden had this prosecutor fired specifically to protect his son, Hunter Biden. Of course, Joe Biden maintains that that's not true, that he really genuinely believed that the prosecutor general, Viktor Shokin, was corrupt. Now, in 1 minute, I'll give you my explanation about why I think these tapes are so important, and we will actually play the audio for you. But before that, of course, I have to sell you something. Did you know that you can buy, sell, save, and spend physical gold with Swipe with Gold? It's super easy with the mobile app to buy real gold for better financial security. Just go to swipewithgold.com, download the app, register, and a prepaid debit MasterCard will be delivered by mail in just a few days for free. Here it is right here. I got my prepaid debit MasterCard here. They just sent it to me, and I'm very excited. I'm going to start using this immediately. Now, when you get your card, you just load your cash onto the card, and then you're ready to buy, save, and spend in real gold. It's that simple. You can withdraw your money anytime at any ATM that accepts MasterCard. So visit swipewithgold.com, that's swipewithgold.com, and download the app right now to get your free card and start using real gold as money. All right, so what is so groundbreaking about these tapes? Why are they so explosive? Why do I think they're so explosive? One of the fundamental points that Joe Biden has been making since this scandal began, right, which eventually led to the impeachment of Donald Trump, by the way, he has always maintained that he genuinely believed that the prosecutor general in Ukraine, Viktor Shokin, he's always maintained that he believed that Viktor Shokin was corrupt, that he was a criminal, that if you didn't get him out of office, there was no way that Ukraine could function in any way other than as a corrupt government, right? You needed to get Viktor Shokin out. He was utterly corrupt, clearly the most corrupt person in that government. Otherwise, why would Biden have targeted him specifically? Why would he not have targeted other politicians? Why him? Well, he must have been so utterly corrupt that Joe Biden understood that taking him out was key to reforming the government of Ukraine, right? That was his position.
So there was this guy, Viktor Shokin. He was the prosecutor general of Ukraine, which is like the attorney general in the United States. he became the embodiment of the corruption that has been hurting Ukraine's government for a very long time. And Joe Biden is the person who got him out of office. It was a monumental, international, bipartisan anti-corruption victory.
Well, in these tapes, we hear an actual conversation between the president of Ukraine at the time and Joe Biden, in which the president of Ukraine specifically and explicitly states to Joe Biden that there is absolutely no evidence of corruption with Viktor Shokin. Viktor Shokin, there was nothing bad about him at all. They couldn't find anything that would require them to remove him from office. He was clean. Poroshenko, the president Poroshenko, specifically and explicitly states this to Joe Biden in this phone call. And Joe Biden's response, okay, he still wanted Viktor Shokin out of office. He still needed him out of office. So what does that say, right? That says to me that Joe Biden was made aware that Viktor Shokin was not a problem. There was no real reason to take him out, and that the Ukraine president knew this as well, but it didn't matter to anybody because it's what Joe Biden wanted. And the president, Petro Poroshenko, he also explicitly states that he's doing this as a favor to Joe Biden. This is what Joe Biden required in order for the Ukrainians to get that $1 billion loan guarantee. And then there is another phone call that we have that we'll listen to as well, in which Joe Biden says, okay, well, now that you have honored your side of our bargain, your side of our deal, you've gotten rid of Viktor Shokin, now I will sign the release of this $1 billion. Right? Joe Biden says, I'm going to do it. Let's talk about the details about how that's going to be done. But yes, I'm a man of my word. I will do it. So it's clear that there's a motivation beyond just Viktor Shokin's corruption. And I think that we all know what that is. That's Joe Biden's wanting to protect Hunter Biden in his job at Burisma, keep that money flowing to his son, that aid money that we were giving Ukraine from the United States. All right, let's have a listen to these tapes.
Yesterday, I met with the General Prosecutor Shokin.
Yes.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him to resign as his position as a state person, and despite of the fact that he has a support in the parliament. And as a finish of my meeting with him, he promised me to give me the statement on resignation. And 1 hour ago, he bring me the written statement of his resignation.
Great.
And this is my second step for keeping my promises.
I agree. Hey, Mr. President, Joe Biden, how are you?
Very well indeed. As usual when I hear your voice. Thank you very much.
Well, you are doing very well. Congratulations on getting the new prosecutor general. I know there's a lot more that has to be done, but I really think that's good. But congratulations on installing the new prosecutor general. It's going to be critical for him to work quickly to repair the damage Shokin did. And I'm a man of my word. And that now that the new prosecutor general's in place, we're ready to move forward in signing that new $1 billion loan guarantee. And I don't know how you want to go about that. I'm not going to be able to get to Kyiv anytime soon, meaning next month or so. And I don't know whether you could either sign it with our ambassador, or if you came here, we could sign it, or if you want, we're inviting Groisman here later. I'm going to be talking to him later this morning, not for that purpose. We're inviting him to Washington, and so I'll leave it up to you as to how you want that done and when you want it done.
Okay, so you've heard it for yourself. Joe Biden, it was explained to him, and I believe in the tapes, you can hear the president, Petro Poroshenko, explaining that it was not a sure thing. In fact, that Viktor Shokin was going to leave office, because the way he's saying it, it sounds like he didn't have total authority just to fire him, because Viktor Shokin had enough people in government to keep him there, right? It seems like maybe Viktor Shokin works under a different faction of the Ukraine political system than did the president at the time, Petro Poroshenko. And yet he still, for the good of the country, I guess, Viktor Shokin agreed to resign. Petro Poroshenko obviously, really pressured him to do so because Joe Biden said, if you don't fire Shokin or you don't somehow get rid of him, then you don't get the $1 billion. And we know that Joe Biden said this because of the earlier admission, in fact, bragging that Joe Biden did about this. So now I wanted to make this particular video very short because I wanted to focus on this audio tape, and I wanted to focus on precisely how important this particular section of the tape was. The part where it shows very clearly that Biden was told by the president of Ukraine at the time, somebody who wasn't even in the same political faction as the prosecutor general Viktor Shokin, that Viktor Shokin was clean. He was not a corrupt politician. He was one of the very few politicians, in fact, in Ukraine who was not corrupt or doesn't appear to be particularly corrupt. So if Viktor Shokin was clean the whole time, why did Joe Biden focus on him so much? We all know the answer to that. But this completely undermines one of Joe Biden's most fundamental claims about this interaction, about this thing. So we have to then go back to Joe Biden. Why did you have the prosecutor general fired if he was so clean? Why did you just completely disregard what the president of Ukraine was telling you at the time, that Viktor Shokin was clean? Why did you disregard that? I think these kind of questions need to be asked Joe Biden. Will they ever be asked of him? Probably not by anyone in the mainstream media, but perhaps we can get him to answer such questions at the debates with Donald Trump, if there are fair moderators. I would certainly encourage anybody out there who's watching the debates, if in any of these debates they take questions from the public, I highly encourage all of you to specifically ask that question. If you were doing a deal with Poroshenko, you clearly believed that he was a friend of the United States and you could trust him to do deals with him. So why did you completely disregard what he was saying about Viktor Shokin being clean? I think it didn't matter to Joe Biden because he had a different motivation, obviously, than cleaning up the corruption in Ukraine. I think he was trying to make money for his son to some degree. Possibly there was a dual motive. Perhaps part of him was trying to clean up Ukraine. I don't know. But he was certainly trying to make a bit of money as well. If you go back and look at my previous videos, I have outlined very specifically all the corruption, or a lot of the corruption, that Joe Biden is guilty of from his time in the Senate and his time as vice president in China, in Ukraine, throughout the world, making sweetheart deals with his family and friends. He is certainly a corrupt politician. I still believe that the impeachment of Donald Trump was a diversion from Joe Biden's guilt. And now with the sexual assault allegation, and on top of all that, you now have his apparent inability to express himself in any comprehensible way. I think that in November, I've had this pinned to my Twitter account for quite some time now, but this is a tweet I made ages ago. I really do believe this will be the lowest voter turnout in U.S. history by the Democrats. I'm not sure that people on the left are going to vote for Trump, but what I am pretty convinced of is that a lot of people on the left just aren't going to vote. I should say this, never underestimate how much people are motivated by their hatred of Donald Trump, right? They really hate Donald Trump. They may just vote for Joe Biden because he's not Donald Trump. They'd rather have a mentally incompetent person in office who's totally corrupt and perhaps guilty of sexual assault. They'd rather have somebody like that in office than Donald Trump because they genuinely believe that Donald Trump is evil. That's the sad reality, because places like, outlets like CNN and MSNBC, they have so brainwashed their viewership that just many people just genuinely believe Donald Trump is a racist and sexist and, hates everybody and he's pure evil. And so they hate him because of that, because they're convinced of that. Look, I'm really hoping that this revelation and maybe a few more smoking guns are discovered and we are able to prove without a shadow of a doubt what Joe Biden was up to in Ukraine, and we're able to show that to the American public so clearly that they cannot argue against it, that they have no reasonable response. They just have to accept, yes, Joe Biden is in fact corrupt, because we know he is. The trick is convincing Democrats of it, because they hate Donald Trump so much, and they are so hopeful right, about their candidate, that they're willing to overlook things like his mental incompetence. They're willing to overlook a sexual assault allegation about which they've always said, believe all women, which is now modified completely. Oh, you don't understand the word believe. It doesn't mean what you think it means, right? And they're also able to overlook very obvious corruption. But I do believe that there are many Democrats who are not willing to overlook obvious corruption. And so if we can get it out there and we can get the people to understand that he is in fact corrupt, I think that, it'll completely take him out of this race. So we need more of these, but this, I think, is a really big one. It's much bigger than other media outlets are making it out. I don't really know why. I haven't seen it on Fox. I haven't seen it in most places. I haven't seen any other YouTubers cover this, so I don't know why this is not a bigger story. To me, this is huge, okay? Joe Biden knew that Victor Shokin was clean. We have that on tape now. That, to me, is a big deal, and I hope that you agree with me. All right, well, that's it for me. And just remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much. That isn't so. Good night.
Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.